Download.
Welcome to Dynamite Download.
Welcome everybody to episode 17 of Dynamite Download. You got your host Crayfish here, my boy SPD rocking that Cody Rhodes shirt, looking good, brother.
Thank you.
Tonight's show was night 2 of New Year's Smash, and what a card we had in store. You and I talk about this all the time. We really don't know how AEW finds a way to squeeze so much in 2 hours of television.
I know, it's crazy. Six matches and so many different segments. And I was telling my wife that after the first hour, I was like, okay, I think they can end the show now. And then we had a whole second hour of the show, and it was just incredible what they could do with the time they have.
Thank God they didn't end the show after that first hour, because we would have missed out on it's hard to say that this main event was matched up with last week's where we got to see Kenny Omega versus Phoenix, but what a main event tonight. But before we get to the main event, let's go over what happened this week's show. I mean, like I said, you mentioned SPD. There were 6 matches on this one, jam-packed card. And it started out on a high note, brother. We got to see Pac versus Kingston. These two have been at war with each other for weeks and weeks on end. And I was grinning ear to ear seeing that one. That was a hell of a match.
Was it ever? Yeah. And it was a tough one to follow. I think it would be very hard for any match to follow. And, that's where we got to see Miro's dominant performance defeating Chuck Taylor. Now Chuck Taylor is going to be his butler till the wedding. So that was an interesting match that we saw tonight as well.
Yeah, I think that AEW did a lot of that throughout this show, kind of peaks and valleys on this week's Dynamite. We're so used to this kind of AEW Dynamite just being one throttle, just full throttle, full go ahead at it. And this was kind of one of those shows that allowed us to have that peaks and valleys of emotions. The Elite went against the Varsity Blondes and Danny Limelight, and that was another example, just a microcosm of those highs and lows of emotions. There was definitely some surprises in that match, and then you got to get to see FTR go against Jurassic Park, Jurassic Express. That was another great tag team match. AEW's always sticking those tag team matches into the show.
Yeah, and then we had the NWA Championship defended by Serena Deeb, defeating Tay Conti. And the main event that brought us home, I was there last week at Dynamite, and that main event truly was a contender for match of the year, and it was only week 1. And it was quite the follow-up. It did not disappoint, this main event, where Darby Allin successfully defended for the first time the TNT Championship against a truly dominant Brian Cage.
We'll get into that when we talk about the main event, because defending the championship is one way to put it. That was quite a match. But you just talked about last week's Dynamite, SPD. I know one of the things that you took away, and it was blowing up on our Instagram page, you were actually talking with Austin Gunn about this, was the chop fest that happened between Kenny Omega and Ray Phoenix last week. Well, I'll tell you what, Pac and Kingston did those two justice in that beginning matchup, because my man Pac's chest was beat red. I know that one of the things you were asking me was, would you rather take a chop from Eddie Kingston or a slap to the face from Jade Cargill? I don't know. All I'm going to say is I'm glad that I wasn't in this match. This was a brutal one. These two were going at each other. And and if you're a longtime fan of Dynamite Download, Pac is my favorite wrestler in the whole world. So seeing him get into this matchup and finally getting his hands on Kingston, was exciting for me as a fan. What I'm going to say about this match before I toss it over to USPD for your elite or delete of the moment of the night, I loved seeing Pac's urgency. He always brings this sense of this intensity and urgency to every single match he's in, but it was that much more in this match with Kingston. And I think when you have that, especially given how heated this feud has been, it just felt right. As a fan, it felt right. It felt like the animosity, the anger, the intensity of the match fit the emotions of the build to this point. This was really a cathartic moment where we got to finally see the two leaders go head to head after so many weeks of battling with each other. So I really loved how both these wrestlers, Pac and Kingston, wrestled this match with the type of anger you would expect for a feud like this. And so often we see matches or feuds where, these two wrestlers hate each other and then they wrestle a match like it's the same old thing. They go through the motions. This was not that, was it?
Oh, it was far from that. I mean, it was a perfect way to start the show, honestly. I loved how they piggybacked on the Road 2 specials and showed some of the promos that they were doing on the Road 2. And just those, like I tweeted out earlier, like watching that Road 2 really gave me chills and excitement for this match even more. And how Eddie is like saying, you want the battle, not the war. I mean, both those guys on the mic are just outstanding. They can really put some heat on the match for sure. But what I loved about the match itself was the fact that Pac went on offense and aggression before his pyro was even finished. His pyro was still going off and he was flipping out of the ring. It was amazing. And, Tony Schiavone said it best, pound for pound. I don't think there is a better wrestler in AEW. And I mean, hearing that out of him, I'm sure you were just like tooting your horn and just, smiling from ear to ear. And I agree.
You see me beaming, brother. You see me beaming ear to ear. It's so great when you have a favorite guy who you've been championing. Kind of goes under the radar. Pac doesn't get the same kind of love and respect that a Kenny Omega or an Okada gets. Even a John Moxley. You don't see Pac mentioned in the same breath as those guys. Right. But when you study the body of work that this guy puts out, it's very clear from Dragon Gate to WWE to AEW. He's so consistent. He's only gotten better over the years. His arsenal now, like you talked about, yes, he's very well known for the high flying offense. And I think that he did a great job in this match of really, again, props to Kingston for being such a great base. Kingston's really a brawler. And so having that high flying, that speed and intensity that Pac brings really shined even more tonight. Given that Eddie Kingston's not going to be doing any black arrows anytime soon. So it was great to see Pac be able to look special and really highlight what he's capable of. I love that.
Did he ever?
I love that. And your point again to before the bell even rang, Pac was all in, right? And that's, again, it goes to, this is a heated feud between these two. Kingston's family has tormented Pac, Penta, and Phoenix ever since they broke up. Really, really well fought, a nice battle. I know that you were really into Kingston's chops. His offense tonight was particularly hard hitting, but it just it was not enough to beat I agreed with Tony Schiavone. I loved it when he said that. I tweeted it right away. I thank you for offering this man the praise he deserves. It just did not stack up against Pac tonight. Kingston's been awesome on the mic, but he just could not get over. And again, I agree with you. For any of these Road 2 of promotional segments that AEW does, you and I are such fans of their graphic team, their video team. AEW does such a great job with their polish and the presentation. Those Road 2 events are so well done.
Yeah, they really are.
Really got a chance to see Pac cut some nice promo work in that. Who did you think you were winking at? I love that. I love that. Right?
Both guys are so good at selling and telling a story. I mean, these guys are just pure veterans in and out of the ring. And I just leaving this wanting more and more of this, like you said, the chop battle was just painful to watch. And, I was wondering, Phoenix was probably wearing that big thick coat because his chest is still probably bruised and bloody from last week. But the chest is, I mean, Pac's chest got all red and bloody as well. I mean, those are no joke. You
No.
talk about the kicks from Pac or the chops from Eddie. Those are two, moves that I would want to avoid at all costs. And
Yeah.
the way we ended the match was outstanding. It's definitely an elite for me. How could it not be with two of our favorite stars in the ring battling that are finally coming toe to toe, that we've been anticipating and wanting to see this for months and months, ever since Pac's re-debut. But the Black Arrow, I mean, we've talked about it before, is just one of the most impressive finishers, if not one of the most impressive finishers out there. I mean, just the patience and the balance and the core strength and the agility is just unbelievable. And I loved how Pac didn't give up after the bell too, after he tapped out. He just kept going. And then we had Lance Archer show up, which we've been wanting to see more and more of. And this was an interesting take at the end, with him going chest to face or face to face.
I mentioned it was so great to see these two go face to face, and Lance thought that was awfully funny because Pac would need to wear some stilts in order to go face to face with the Murder Hawk. No, I'm with you, SPD. The ending of the match too. This was no doubt an elite for me. Quite honestly, Pac, even though it was the opener, this match lingered with me throughout the rest of the night. Really,
they set the bar high.
It set the bar so high, and you mentioned, it was hard to follow this. I think the show had a hard time, getting its legs underneath it after seeing such an incredible battle these two put on, and I think that this Pac versus Kingston, that whole group with the Death Triangle versus Kingston's family with the Murder Hawk kind of thrown in there, that is not done. That
I hope
clearly
it's not.
saw at and whether it's between Pac and Lance Archer, which we love here at Dynamite Download, we love that the potential those two could have together. But even with the ending of this match, right? This could have been a blow-off match between Kingston and Pac. I don't see that happening. Pac won.
Right.
After the win, transitioning from the Black Arrow to his heel finisher, which is the Brutalizer, and locking in the Brutalizer on Kingston, who had an injured shoulder. They talked about that throughout the match. He had, potential dislocated shoulder. He hurt his shoulder in some way, shape, or form. For Pac to lock that in after the bell really emphasized that he's not done with Kingston. A win is not sufficient to quench his thirst for revenge. He wants pain. And so I think that Pac, with that mentality, and what a visual that is, Eddie, like, that's great by Eddie. But what a visual that is. Pac going all in like this on the violence is only going to further escalate this feud. I really think you brought it up weeks and weeks ago now, SPD, that this is one of those feuds where it's going to be iron sharpens iron. This is going to be one of those feuds where you're building a new core. And you're seeing it right now. Lance Archer, Pac, Kingston, those three are clearly shining as singles stars. I think that a potential triple threat between those three would be an incredible match.
That would be, for sure.
And then you're seeing, on the sidelines, I also want to, while we're talking about it, before we transition to the next matchup, I really liked what we saw out of Butcher, the Blade, and the Bunny at ringside. I think that, what Bunny, we've talked about this with past moments with Butcher and the Blade, Bunny playing that, that nasty, sadistic heel manager on the outside, raking Pac's eyes, laughing maniacally. That is a lost art in today's form of entertainment. Most females now are presented in a way where, they're competitors. And it's really great to see Bunny, I think, rounding out the team of Butcher and the Blade. I think that was an incredible showing by them, and I can't wait to see this continue going into Revolution. I don't want this to be the end of this feud. I think that this has really helped build all of these these 6 or 7, really 7 competitors now into something special. So
This is
I'm
far
all
from
there.
the end. I hope so, and I believe it's definitely far from the end on this one.
Yeah, and things have only just begun for Chuck Taylor because he Miro cut a great promo on his Twitter earlier this week from the gym.
He did, yeah.
And it was one of those moments where he was like, Chuck Taylor, if I beat Chuck Taylor, he becomes my young boy, and if Chuck Taylor beats me, nothing, because Chuck Taylor was too stupid to not add a stipulation. I don't know if it was that Chuck Taylor was too stupid not to add a stipulation, or if Chuck Taylor just knew he wasn't going to beat Miro, because Miro is on a warpath. This dude is showing that it's a very natural feel to his character right now. I don't know about you, SPD. I know that you've kind of had a hard time with the presentation of Miro. I think that a lot of the AEW family is in the same wheelhouse as you. Me as a Miro fan throughout his run in NXT, even as the beginning of that, I see that he's really kind of comfortable in his own skin and he's playing himself. I think that this is just an amplified version of who he is. So he's kind of got that cool, confident, laid back gamer vibe to him, but that intensity that he brings to the ring was shown in tonight's match, was it not?
Was it ever? I mean, so I wish this had just a little bit more time in the match itself. It started off hot. Chuck Taylor impressed me. His aggressiveness and his fast pace, and then how he was taking a little hardcore outside. And so I thought that part was entertaining. And then what happened afterwards is what needed to happen, because we've been itching and wanting to see Miro go on a tear, and it's still a roller coaster for me, man. He comes out with this dominant performance of the Battle Royal, and then we don't really see him. I don't think we've seen him in the ring since, and that is such a long time to pump the brakes and push the gas, all those things. We get these little 2-minute promos and vignettes, and we thought after that Battle Royal, the pure dominant performance that we saw from him, we would really see him go on this big massive tear. And
Right.
I mean, it shows every time he's in the ring of what he's capable of doing and the pure power that he has. But they just lose steam when they don't feature him in the ring at least every other week. I know Dark is a different show, but you could still throw him on Dark just to have a squash match, just to show face, in the ring. So for me, it was great performance by Miro. It's what needed to happen. He squashed a reputable wrestler, and this will further the story with these guys, and it'll make for some good TV leading up to the Beach Bash. I'm gonna give it a soft elite just because of seeing Miro just go on a tear and being dominant, what we are wanting to see out of him and what he's capable of. And I don't even think we saw of everything what we're capable of him. But it's a soft elite, as you gave that last week. A soft elite.
Yeah, I know it feels weird giving something a soft elite. And SPD, you and I are both on the same page here. I think we're both torn on this one. I don't know how to rank this. I'll say the ending is exactly how it needed to happen. The storyline playing out going forward is going to be, I think it's going to present itself in a way that, Miro's going to torment Chuck Taylor, and it's going to lead up to the conquering hero Trent coming back. And I think that'll be,
Orange Cassidy conquering him too, maybe.
You definitely see Orange Cassidy involved in this. He looked conflicted and obviously devastated to see his friend not only beaten but kind of humiliated and humbled. I think Miro is on a mission here to the best friends are jokesters, right? They take everything kind of lightly. They hug in the middle of a match. I have a feeling that Miro's he's on a mission, and he's gonna humble and beat some respect into Chuck Taylor over the next few weeks. I think he's gonna make his life miserable. So I like the way that the storyline is going. I think that it certainly has intrigue to it. I struggle with what you're saying as far as Miro's weekly performances on Dynamite. And you're right. I forgot. It's been that long since he's been featured in the ring. That's a great point by you. You know, we
Right.
do need to see him in action more. But we talk about this every week. You know, there's so many talented members on the roster. There's so many storylines that are developing and people that we want to see get more time. I think that Miro is such an established star that he doesn't need that week in, week out performance in the ring to remind us of how dominant and really the draw that Miro is. I think that Miro is one of those guys that, when he's in the ring, he's gonna bring it. We've seen Miro over the course of his career really deliver week in, week out on a regular basis. I think that there's with how many young people are on this roster, I think that there's a little bit more room to, I think, be showing them and giving them opportunities. And Miro, anytime you need him, he's one of those guys you can just throw him out there and he's going to deliver. So
Yeah,
I see your point, and I certainly think that if they want to push him into a world championship type of tier, he definitely needs to have a run. But for where he's at right now, and how they're utilizing him, I think they're doing just fine. I will give this a delete only because it felt like such a downer kind of match after that incredible opening match. It just didn't match up for me. I like Miro in the ring. I think he's one of the best big men in the company.
right.
But I gotta say it's only a delete because of where it was on the card. It was the next match after that incredible main opener between Pac and Kingston, and I just don't think that this one held a candle to that. Unfortunately, even when you look at the feud, the intensity of the feud between Pac and Kingston and all that, and this feud, we've talked about it. It's based off of a video game. They broke a video game. It's so frivolous. It doesn't hold up. And even though I can respect what Miro did in this match, he certainly was dominant. Chuck Taylor is not necessarily my cup of out of the best friends. I think that Trent is the guy. He's the workhorse, and so I didn't think that this one matched up as well. That said, when we talk about like high expectations and setting a bar high, I think that it's important that we talk about what Matt Hardy has planned for Private Party. The man's talking about these guys becoming multimillionaires, and I want to hear what was your take on this overall segment, because I know you find Matt Hardy's evolution really entertaining.
I really do. And he was featured a lot on BTE this last week, and I loved every bit of it, man. When he was ribbing in the Young Bucks and trying to sell them, I don't know if you caught it or not, sell them a new office space, and it was the wrong key, and had a lot of stuff with Private Party. But right away when he cut them off, he goes, "No, I talk first." I was like, yes, yeah. Matt Hardy, that's so great. And then at the end of the promo, how he's very intense and how, he's the greedy money manager. And that's great. He just needs to just keep living up to this greedy money manager guy, and it's going to work. I don't know. This promo really hit. He's so smooth when he talks. He's always fun to watch. He's unpredictable and very entertaining to me. I love this promo, and I think it's a perfect fitting with Private Party, who we are very high up on with their skill set, and they do need some, a guy like him who can teach them the charismatic part of wrestling and the personality. Private Party exudes that with their entrances and just their gimmick, and to get more comfortable with all that part of, they seem very comfortable in the ring, but to be comfortable in that part of the promo world and just carrying yourself there with being with Hardy is going to pay off in dividends. More than 30% of what they're giving him is going to pay off more. And I agree with Hardy.
Yeah. I think that there's no denying that Private Party has a natural charisma to them, right? There's something about these two guys. Their entrance is on point. You can clearly see that they enjoy working together. They have a natural chemistry together. Their offense is always exciting. But I do think that the polish of what it means to be a superstar and carry yourself like one, you're not going to have a better mentor than Matt Hardy. The man has continued to keep himself relevant, continue to be creative and push himself to want to learn more about the business, to give back to the business in more ways. I felt like this segment was potentially going to go off the rails for a little bit. I was worried because there was definitely that bickering back and forth, and it felt like they were almost like confused on what they were going to say at times. It was
right.
like they were definitely bickering and arguing and almost throwing each other off. It felt like at times, like
I could see that.
But overall, I think that, Matt Hardy has certainly set the tone where he's going to take these two. I got to ask you, SPD, I've been pondering this. Do you feel like this is obviously Matt Hardy is showing that egomaniac persona more and more, taking credit for, ladder matches and all sorts of stuff, right? Do you see this potentially leading to the Private Party being more heelish, or do you see them rebelling against Matt Hardy and kind of becoming more baby faces? Because I definitely am intrigued by how Matt Hardy, not just in his advice, but in his actions, how that's rubbing off on Private Party. Are they going to acclimate to those traits, or are they going to push away from them? What do you think? How would you book it?
I think it would work both ways for sure. I think I could see Private Party really leaning into this persona of being greedy and, making all this money on Cameo like they said they were doing on BTE. But also at the end, this is a hot team that, with a division that's really not full of babyface tag teams that have that high potential of Private Party or that polish, really. I mean, especially with Young Bucks going into the Bullet Club, now they're returning essentially to heels.
Yeah.
You think, I feel like it's not ready for them to do that, but I think down the line they could. But the way I would book it is, ride this out and then eventually turn on Hardy, and then you have this feud with Private Party and Hardy, plus who knows, maybe he recruited someone else to be, part of the Hardy Party. So that's how I'd book it. But it's entertaining. I love that it's featured every week, and we're going to see him next week.
Yeah. I definitely, I'm intrigued. I'll say that. I think that either way, it could lead to some very entertaining television. And obviously anything Matt Hardy's involved with, I think is going to be entertaining. I just think that I've been chewing on that one for a little bit. I love what they're doing on BTE. And I'm wondering, does Private Party kind of finally see Matt Hardy was right, and they hit the goal, they hit the jackpot, and they lean into this cockiness? Because I could certainly see these two being cocky heels, right? They have that but like you just pointed out, there's not a lot of big babyface teams on the tag roster, and that isn't going to get changed even with this inner circle tag team challenge that they have.
Triple threat, whatever you want to call it.
Really interesting. I will say, I mean, maybe Santana Ortiz showed some signs of kind of little babyface vibes going on during this segment. What's your take on this whole New Year's resolution, this whole segment, and how it bleeds into next week's show? What were your thoughts on this one?
This is a prime example to me of constantly featuring, the number one stable over and over again, the inner circle on TV, whether it be Jericho on commentary, one guy in the ring, Wardlow in the ring. And then now we have almost the whole inner circle competing next week. I honestly thought Wardlow was going to say something like, what about me? And then I think that would have been a fun twist at the end. Cause you see this photo right here, you don't see Wardlow. And after coming off that huge win with Jake Hager, he deservedly deserves a singles. I think they can play it off where they all fought, I should be getting a singles match or something like that. But before I dive into the segment, last week being there live singing Judas was definitely an AEW bucket list moment for me. So I can't wait to do that again.
Yeah, no
but
doubt. That's one of the
MJF.
best entrances.
Oh, I
in
agree.
sports.
Yeah, it was great. I loved it. MJF surprisingly, not well, I guess yes and no. Surprisingly, he was really the one that kept the glue. He was the glue of the segment.
I'm telling you,
Saying,
man, you
yeah,
shouldn't be surprised anymore.
he
This
kept it
this dude,
going, saying nothing can break us up, and he's really gonna ultimate. He's gonna give us the ultimate heel turn, ultimate slap in the face. I'm just waiting for it. It's coming. We know it's coming. He's not gonna lighten up at all on us. But I loved how he said about the resolutions. The gold for the inner circle, fat people got to go, everyone's got a thing like that. So I mean, he had to find something to rub everyone the wrong way.
yeah,
But then you get the key tagline, the tag team slut. Sammy
that
Guevara,
was
he's
funny.
showing his true baby face signs right here when he's kind of standing up to Jericho.
Yeah, I was, that made a lot of sense. I mean, he's not wrong. Jericho's tagged with Hager, and he's tagged with Sammy, and now he wants to tag with MJF.
Yep.
I thought that was quite funny, and I didn't see Sammy being the one who was gonna kind of like pull away. I mean, obviously
Right.
he's shown signs of, since MJF has been introduced to the inner circle, he's shown signs of reservations on allowing that to happen, and has challenged Jericho's judgment on that. But this was by far the most definitive babyface moment for Sammy in quite some time. And I thought that him standing up to Jericho this way, it was entertaining. He had the line of the night as far as the tag team slut. That was hilarious.
He definitely did.
You mentioned Wardlow. I was actually, if these groups were all going to break out this way, I've talked about it. Wardlow and Hager,
I
what
was
a
hoping
team
for
those
it.
two could have been, man. Oh my gosh, man. Like, especially coming off the heels of that matchup, I felt like that's a miss just because, it could have been played off as, Wardlow finally earned Hager's respect. They
Yeah.
they respect each other now, and they could have teamed up, and I think those two could be a wrecking crew together. I mean, talk about two big, strong, athletic big men. That would have been a great pairing. But that said, the other big thing I took away from this one is really Santana and Ortiz. I think that there's a groundswell of support. People are remembering that these guys are special in the ring, and we haven't seen Santana and Ortiz really in action much since that parking lot brawl with the best friends. We haven't really seen them get a lot of in-ring time.
Right.
And with all the great character work that they've been doing over the last few weeks, especially Ortiz, you and I have talked about that. I felt like maybe they have the most potential to be baby faces out of the group. I mean, I think that maybe Sammy and Santana and Ortiz have that baby face vibe going to them right now. There's I don't know. I'm a big fan of seeing them get in the ring again, though. I miss those guys. I think that Santana and Ortiz are one of the best tag teams on this roster, and that says a lot because this roster is stacked with tag teams.
Full of them.
Santana's point about how they were hand selected to be the team of the inner circle was also there's a lot of good challenges that were brought up in this one. You're starting to see the dissent popping up between each member of the inner circle and Jericho's leadership. So certainly going to be interesting. MJF kind of being more assertive as a leader, like you and I talked about, just kind of serving more and more as the glue to hold this group together. Interesting for sure. We talk a lot about the inner circle being the group of AEW, and we love the inner circle. They're certainly like you and I talk about every single week. There's no reason why these guys shouldn't be on the show in some way, shape, or form. The same can be said for the Dark Order. Now, whether it's Johnny Silver doing his thing, tag team specialists doing their thing, Anna Jay made an appearance tonight supporting Ty Conti. There's so much talent. We watched 10 really during the Brody tribute show that he's capable of carrying some in-ring action. He has potential to be truly a star in this group. There's so much support behind the Dark Order right now. There's no reason why these guys shouldn't be on every single week of Dynamite. They're just too entertaining. They're so funny. John Silver, again, man, I don't know. Like you told me a long time ago, like this guy is legitimately probably one of the coolest guys on the roster, just in that he's hilarious. He seems like he'd be fun to have a beer or two with, which cheers, Johnny. I don't blame him wanting to get together with Hangman and having that. I think it's going to be interesting next week. No,
I'm excited for it, and it was great to the question on everyone's mind, like where do they go from here, and it was addressed, and then it's kind of you don't want to say back to business with Dark Order because obviously there's this looming darkness above them with Brody Lee's passing, but it was nice to see their true personalities come back out. And that's another reason why we are, in the heart of Join Dark Order January here at Dynamite Download. It is in the heart of it right now. We're still pushing as many people to support the Dark Order and join Dark Order throughout the recruitment month that we started here at the Dynamite Download. So, silver equals gold. I'll say it every time, week in and week out. And I can't wait to see him in the ring. And I loved how he was starstruck with Hangman Adam Page. It's just this stuff, where they go from here, I'm not sure, but it's going to be a fun match. And hopefully we see Hangman continue this trend because really he doesn't have many feuds going on right now. And it's working, this whole fanboy of the Dark Order worshiping Hangman in a way is really working. I liked it. So it was a short, sweet, powerful, and gets you excited for next week.
Yeah, and I think that like what's so beautiful about this team and this pairing, it's kind of naturally all coming together. But Hangman being like the jaded cast off of the former tag team champions and the Elite, the Young Bucks and Kenny really have turned their back on Hangman over the course of the last year, and he finds himself alone. He's drinking and kind of low self-worth, low self-esteem. He's come up short. He's talked about how he continues to come up short in his biggest moments, and I think that having a crew like the Dark Order, and especially like we've talked about, that just that natural energy and excitement and joy that these guys bring to every moment that they're in, the lightheartedness that they have, is a perfect fit and a perfect mesh with where Hangman finds himself in his career right now.
Right.
We've all found ourselves down and out at some point in time, and having a positive friend in your life or having positive people in your life to root you on and to push you and remind you to keep going is exactly, those are angels sent from above, man. Those are people who are doing the Lord's work, in my opinion. Just those people who remind you to keep pushing forward, and in some way, shape, or form, the Dark Order is serving that to Hangman. I think that they're going to help him get his career back on track. And we talk like the Dark Order is undefeated in 2021. If we don't count Ty, I don't know if Ty Conti is an official member yet or not, but they're undefeated. So maybe those winning ways will help Hangman going forward. We'll see. We look forward to next week for sure. A group of people who are not struggling with winning at all is Kenny Omega, Hangman's former partner. He is really, his trajectory and his growth has just taken off like a rocket. He has proven that this guy, like, man, does he ooze charisma? That guy is just dripping with like just machismo and charisma, and just everything about him right now screams world champion, does it not?
Oh my gosh. I mean, yeah, the way he just presents himself and just the way he's dresses constantly, and then just having Don Callis, the invisible hand, right next to him. And every week, I mean, Don Callis keeps saying it over and over how they're going to change the wrestling business in the world. And they give us swerves every single week, and they're delivering. They are living up to their promises. Kenny Omega's entrances are phenomenal. I mean, just this backstage segment was so great because, you know, we see the Young Bucks and Kenny and Don, and they're like, oh, no, they need their own entrances because they have the gold around their waist too, which makes sense. I mean, you know, you want everyone to have their own entrances because they have their own shtick. But
It
it was
man, did
that
Don
they,
Callis
oh
play
my
me like a fool,
gosh.
man.
I
He
did
played
not
me like a
expect that
fool.
at all, to see the Good Brothers and how he took the mic and, you know, getting the band back together, kept saying it, and, you know, like, what is next? You know, they are definitely playing us all. It is quite the surprises week in and week out. You know, they didn't announce anything for next week for Kenny Omega, but I'm sure we'll see him. I mean, he's going to be appearing on Impact later this Saturday, right? On that pay-per-view.
Yeah, pay-per-view.
So
Hard to do.
he's a busy man, you know, held the title for 42 days, and his entrances are over and over, you know, getting better and better. But it was an entertaining match, a very big swerve. I was honestly surprised how long it went because,
Yeah.
not to give discredit Varsity Blondes and Danny Limelight at all, which they actually looked really strong, and I was surprised that they gave him this much ring time with the quote unquote the best in the biz, you know, the
Yeah.
Bullet Club, and it helped them. You know, it could have easily been a squash match because they didn't advertise who they're wrestling, but it kept the momentum on Brian Pillman Jr. and Griff Garrison and Danny Limelight. They really actually made them look really strong competing against, you know, people who have gold around their waist for a reason. So I liked it, but I do think it went a little long in my opinion.
Yeah.
But it was a great unexpected segment, unexpected swerve. And one thing I really did like as well was when they cut to the backstage where you see Tony Khan. You know, Tony Khan doesn't really show
That
face
was
on
so
TV that
great,
much.
wasn't it?
Yeah, and so here's the picture right here. This is a first for Dynamite, from what I can remember, and I thought it was a really cool segment to see that. Like, he's out, they're all pissed off and like, what the heck is going on? So, this is great visual for that.
And maybe Tony used some of that money that he fined the Young Bucks over all those weeks to pay for his paid advertisements on Impact.
That's
because
true. Those are
it's
great.
so weird to see Tony hanging out next to the Young Bucks after all the animosity that those guys had for Tony with their super kick party that they were having on the AEW staff. I will say this was a swerve for me. I didn't see. I mean, now that I look back on it, I don't know why I didn't see this happening.
True.
Like you talked about, Don Callis, the invisible hand, always seems to have an ace up his sleeve. He always has a surprise waiting for us. And I should have seen this coming with the Good Brothers, you know, but the Elite, I'm so used to seeing Kenny and the Bucks together that I was, you know, especially after the finish of last week's show, I didn't see this tension coming out.
No,
so
not at all.
Gonna be interesting. You talked about, you know, not a lot of face tag teams on the AEW roster, and the Varsity Blondes are that. Very easy to root for. Those guys, young up and comers. You know, obviously Brian Pillman, we have a follow. He has such a big following because so many of us loved what his dad did for the business and really was taken away from us way too soon. So seeing Brian follow the footsteps of his dad is really, really cool. And Griff Garrison, I know Bonds, our columnist, he talks, his favorite wrestler of all time is Edge. And for him to compare Griff Garrison to Edge is very high praise coming from Bonds, because again,
Hall of Famer.
Edge is the bar for Bonds. And I see the comparisons. You know, you see this is a young kid who, again, you mentioned it, SPD, if he can add another 10, 15 pounds of muscle, this dude could be a real star. He's got the look, bro. His offense is fast paced. You could tell he's gaining confidence every single week. Being in a tag team is a really great way for him to start gaining that confidence, because it doesn't overexpose him and some of the things that he might not know.
For sure.
So I really loved where that's going. I will say I agree. It was surprisingly a long match, given really how lopsided it looks on paper. You know, I mean, Kenny Omega is truly on another level right now. I don't know how anyone could argue that he's not the best in the world, and that's even coming from a Pac fanboy like me. I mean, the guy is just doing it all. Really, and then when you look, I mean, I've for me, the Good Brothers, they're not on the same tier as the Bucks and FTR, in my opinion, as far as how I like my tag team wrestling. But I'll give them credit. I mean, those guys have done a lot, and they've traveled the world, been champions in all corners of the continent. So seeing them paired up with Kenny and being really the muscle for Kenny is a nice swerve.
Yep.
Was this an elite or delete out of you, though? Because I know you mentioned this being a long match. I know it was not what we expected here at Dynamite Download, expecting to see Kenny and the Young Bucks. You get a very different vibe when you get them get Kenny paired with the Good Brothers. What do you say, SPD? Is this gonna be an elite out of you?
It definitely is an elite out of me, because anytime I could see Kenny in the ring, I mean, he delivers Mr. 7-star matches. But I mean, besides just Kenny, like we said, we're high on the Varsity Blondes. I'm still waiting for recruitment, them to accept my recruitment letter to be a trio. But it was a great match. And if you're talking about just the match itself, it was elite because it's very high paced. And Danny Limelight, which I haven't seen much of, really impressed me as well. Plus all the stuff that happened after the match. I mean, if you add those all in one segment, I mean, this was quite the brawl. I mean, we were texting back and forth, and it was insane what was going on. Moxley comes out, and then just literally all hell broke loose. And
yeah, I mean, that we could have a show just talking about the aftermath and where this could go. I mean, the Lucha Brothers.
Oh, that was so great when they kicked the Lucha Brothers super kicked the Young Bucks, and it was
giving them a taste of their own medicine. I mean, John Moxley got involved. I mean, that was, you could see, and this is what I talked about when we first saw the Bullet Club get together. You could see a bigger war brewing. You can see.
Oh, it's gonna.
There are gonna be and I love this. You and I both love this about AEW is they tie together all their characters. You see, I mean, Britt Baker brought it up in the next segment. All the pots that Cody has on the stove, right? So many characters are intertwined together, and I really think that this blow up at the end of the match was a great example of all these stories coming together. Where is it going to go, right? I mean, the Lucha Brothers, how do they get involved in here? Are they supporting Moxley, or is it just because they want a shot at the titles? Where do they go? I mean, shoot, they have a history with TNA. Do they want to challenge for the TNA championships, the Impact Championship belts? So many places that this can go.
It was so great.
They leave the breadcrumbs for us, brother. They left us whole loaves for us to come after next week, dude. I cannot wait to see all that comes out of this. I mean, think about the matchups: the Lucha Brothers versus the Young Bucks. I know
that is a dream match for me. Dream tag team. I mean, we talked about dream matches last week: Kenny Omega and Rey Fenix. But a dream tag team, the Lucha Brothers and the Young Bucks. Oh my gosh, I could watch that for an hour straight.
Well, you're a Lucha Bros fanatic. You've been really from the day they showed face
on TV,
AEW.
right? Yeah,
you've been saying these guys are at the top, if not the best team in the world, and there's such a blend of different styles. I mean, I love how Phoenix is that true classic luchador. Penta, certainly more of a technical submission, brutal brawler. And you see Penta rubbing off on Phoenix with his chops and his physicality. Those two are really, really talented.
Yes,
wow,
they are.
What a visual. But to see them in the ring against the Young Bucks or the Good Brothers, there's no wrong pairing in that. I cannot wait for where that goes. And it is, AEW tweeted, how weird it is to see John Moxley without the world title. It's nice to see that he's not going away anytime soon. I know that his wife Renee is pregnant, and it could have, the loss to Kenny, especially with the way that it all happened, would have been an easy way for them to segue him off of TV for a little while. I'm happy that he's not going anywhere.
Me too.
Moxley it does feel very much like a cornerstone of AEW. I know we talk about Kenny and the Elite, Cody, but
Jericho.
Moxley is. It's weird to say because of all his time with the Shield and all that time in WWE, but he truly feels like an AEW guy. I mean,
Yeah.
you could see it. I mean, they did such a great job establishing him on his World Championship run.
Did they ever? Yeah.
But speaking of somebody who I want to see with the World Championship, I want to see Britt Baker, baby, with that. I want to see her with that AEW Women's Championship. What a segment this was. Truly, we talk about chaos at the end of that last segment. That chaos bled over into the waiting room. Britt tried her best to keep order, but I think inviting Jade might have been a mistake. What was your take on this segment, brother? How did you feel like the waiting room? Really, this waiting room has been a staple on Dark for many, many weeks. This was a great chance for us to see it on Dynamite. It certainly had some major star power with Cody being involved. How did you take this segment? Were you a fan, or was it too chaotic for you? Did you lose interest because of that chaos? Because I know that some people struggled with that.
I personally think I lost a little bit of interest in this one. It seemed just kind of all over the place. Like you said, yeah, chaotic. It wasn't really structured. I feel like they kept just going off the rails, and it was too free flowing. I don't even think I have to go back and watch it if Cody even got a word in.
He had a couple.
before he
Anytime
got
Britt Baker
interrupted.
has a microphone in front of her, she's not going to allow people to get much words in. But
Yeah, so but she really jabbed at Cody a lot before he came out. So she was really cutting deep on him. So that's kind of, I mean, that's her persona, that's her gimmick for sure. But I expected more out of Cody out of this, but I was actually wondering this. I was like, when are we what happened to Jade? Obviously Brandy got pregnant. So I was wondering this past week when we're gonna see her next. And then she showed up, and she showed up with a vengeance for sure. What they do from here, if she challenges Red Velvet, that's clearly is a size match that should be victory by Jade. I mean,
what a visual! Holy smokes! I mean, Jade looks like she's literally carved out of rock. I mean,
looks like Hulk Hogan next to Marco Stunt almost.
Yeah, this was. This is certainly a David versus Goliath type of matchup, right? I mean, the main event, Cage versus Darby. This is that kind of on the female side of things. I mean, Jade is a powerhouse. I know that Red Velvet is certainly scrappy. If you watch some of her work, you know that she plays that underdog role to her advantage. Certainly. That said, I don't know, man. I think that this is going to be one of those messages. Jade's going to send a message loud and clear to Brandy, and unfortunately, it's going to be at the expense of Red Velvet.
Yeah, and this segment, even though it was chaotic, it told a lot of stories. It kind of pulled out, the dirt on Cody, essentially, like who you going for, Sting, Shaq, Snoop Dogg, like what's going on with you, And then you have the Jade and the Red Velvet, or the Jade and Brandy segment. Then you have all hell breaks loose, and all of a sudden Thunder Rosa appears on the screen, and then we're like, yes. I mean, this is, the waiting room being on Dark. It could be every other week type of segment that we see on Dynamite, just to, like we said, in the past, to build a women's division, you need to have these stars constantly featured, whether it be a match or a segment. And this is a perfect segment to constantly feature who you believe, and we both believe, is the star of the women's division, Britt Baker. But I mean, it was so great to hear Thunder speak and cut a promo, and we finally have a date for the feud. The feud of AEW that you've been saying over and over again at Beach Break, February 3rd, which could be the main event of the night. In our opinion, we believe that this could be the main event. Thunder Rosa versus Britt Baker, to really crown the queen of the women's division.
Well said, SPD. Well said. I know that, and I'm not gonna argue. I think that the detractors the detractors of this segment, they make valid points. It did get chaotic. It did go off the rails a little bit. I wish, MJF was here to kind of pull everybody back on track, but Britt's usually so good at that. But there was a lot going on. So I can respect those people who felt like it kind of got lost and it kind of got a little too muddled down with all the stuff going on. But to me, I think it's established, one, Britt Baker and Rebels, their pairing, their comedic timing together is so on point. They are so like, I loved the over the top laughter in the background to every joke and little comment that Britt Baker made. I think that Britt is natural on the microphone. She was so corny. I loved that. But Britt is so good on the mic. I'm just shocked at how far she's come. Mm-hmm. She's so comfortable, and she really can command the attention of the audience. I love her ability to kind of poke jabs at things, to really, I think, tell a story in a way through her actions, through her words. The girl is on point, and she just has that star power. For me, yes, I was expecting a little bit more out of Cody, but we did see, Cody has a lot of different pots on the fire. He's got this big show that he's on with TNT. Mm-hmm. He's got that cross promotion going with Shaq, a lot going on. And so really this was a way to recenter Jade, Brandy, Jade and Shaq against Cody and Brandy, right? Right. I thought that they tried to establish that. I just wonder if that was really the right place for it. I mean, this segment to me, in the end, we're all remembering Britt Baker versus Thunder, right? Mm-hmm. And so
for sure,
some of that got lost with all the other craziness going on. Let's dial in and focus in on the fact that we get the match of, I think, the women's division thus far in 2021. We get to see Britt Baker versus Thunder Rosa. Like we talked about, that is the feud of AEW right now. It is the hottest feud in the company. Both of these two have such star potential. Britt with her ego and her constant jabs at other people, her belief in herself, that kind of a superiority complex that she has, versus Thunder, who has that, like, came from nothing, pushed herself, made a self-made story, that underdog. It's just such a natural pairing. You have a groundswell of support. Thunder Rosa has so many fans who love what she's done, what she represents. And it's so easy to hate Britt Baker just because she's a Steelers fan. So we'll move on. The next segment, to me, I was expecting back to back. You get Britt Baker and you get FTR. As my friend, it doesn't get much better than that for me. Back to back segments of Britt Baker and FTR. That said, I left tonight feeling a little disappointed by both. I love Britt. I thought that segment got a little convoluted, and I think FTR is the best tag team, in the business. But this match just didn't do it for me, brother. It was the first time that I've watched FTR on AEW, and I was expecting this not to be a competitive match. I was expecting this to have shenanigans in it. Dax was really pushing on social that he was going to beat the hell out of Marco. It just didn't deliver like what I was expecting for some reason. I hate to sound like a bitter fan because it wasn't what I was hoping for, but I just, it either you lean all the way into FTR beating the snot out of Marco, or you don't, and you make it a competitive match. It just teetered between that for some reason, way too long. It didn't feel like it was a clear story to me. I struggled with this one. And again, this is the first time you're going to hear, and hopefully the last, you'll hear Crayfish give FTR a delete. But this segment is a delete for me. This match is a delete for me. I don't think that Jungle Boy particularly showed what we've seen Jungle Boy have some incredible outings in the past, and we know what he's capable of. I don't think that he really had a great showing tonight. I don't think that there was anything particularly notable about his experience. Not that it was bad, but just there was nothing particularly notable about his performance tonight. The fact that FTR needed to have Tully help interfere for them to beat Marco, it was disappointing in that regard. I just don't think that FTR looked dominant the way that they should have, especially because there was so much played into. We go back to that last week, SPD, outsmarting Jurassic Park into getting Luchasaurus out of this match. I feel like it would have made so much sense if you would have just had FTR really. We haven't seen them get a lot of tag action lately, really get reestablished as the number one contenders, the team that has not got their rematch against the Young Bucks. You go all in and really don't be afraid to make this a squash match. I know that Jurassic Express is they are a formidable tag team, and they're much needed as baby faces in the rankings, but this is not that tandem. This is Jungle Boy and Marco. And I thought that they really they missed an opportunity here to, one, make FTR look like awful heels, and two, put extra heat on this feud. Can you imagine Luchasaurus wanting to get his hands on FTR after a brutal beating of Marco, right?
Right. Yeah. So the way I agree with you on a lot of parts. The way I would have booked it was a more of a squash beatdown looking FTR strong. Then you can have the ultimate payout of Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy versus FTR, which really would have been the main selling feud. This match went on way too long. You had Marco in the ring about 85% of the time. And, but for what it's worth, Marco and his size and his abilities, he's really making the most of it. I can appreciate his effort, and I can appreciate what he is doing with what he's given. You can't change your size, you can't change all that. But Jurassic Express, I'm huge fans of Jurassic Express. Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus combination to me are an outstanding, fun tag team to watch. But with Marco in the ring, it just was they made it. FTR got sold as this team that could be beat by Marco's stunt, and I think it was poor booking on that part, and it was an unfortunate part. I hope that we do get the Luchasaurus Jungle Boy, but where do you go from that? Because this match, you had so many false finishes where Jungle Boy and Marco were looking like they were going to upset FTR. They're the X Tag Team Champions. They held the belt last. They should be tearing through not a team, of Jungle Boy and Marco's son.
No,
so it was very interesting part of that. Sad. It's a sad way we feel about this being a delete across the board for us. Unfortunately, I think FTR can recover from this, and I hope we do get the payout of them putting down Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy. That will really help reestablish them more. But it was unnecessary, the Tully interference and all that should have happened when it's with Lucha and Jungle Boy, not Lucha or Jungle Boy and Marco. So, I guess a highlight of the match for me was when Marco's stunt almost got his head uppercutted off by FTR. Oh my gosh, did you see those uppercuts in the corner?
Yeah,
and his head looked like he was about to fall off.
Thank you for getting me to be a little happier in this segment, because that was one thing that they were pushing hardcore. Dax especially was pushing hardcore on social. Was his goal in this match was to send Marco Stunt's head into the fourth row.
He almost did.
They were laying in some uppercuts and clotheslines and lariats. They were certainly at times showcasing what a disparity of strength and skill and size they had. But yes, I agree with you. Marco certainly is doing great for what he is. I don't want to hate. I don't want to hate on him for his size. That's not fair to do.
Right.
But I will say the booking, I can criticize that. I think that putting him in this spot, this spot, you're going to have a lot of AEW is an upward, we are big advocates and we love AEW, but there are a lot of critics. We know that, right? We're trying our best to navigate that storm of negativity here as positive fans for this company. But this is going to be one of those matches where you showcase Marco Stunt against legitimately a team that has won every tag team title that you could possibly ask for in North American wrestling.
Right.
And you have Marco Stunt really at times giving them a hard time. And that just, I know Jim Cornette. I don't want to give him any more rub than he deserves. I mean, the guy's the most negative guy on the internet, but I know Jim Cornette's an FTR fan, and I can only imagine the guy's probably blowing his gasket right now, seeing like after that match. It was not SPD, this match had its place, but it was not executed and booked. It was almost booked out of fear of trying to make everybody look good, and instead nobody did. And that's a disappointment. I think that sometimes you have to lean into, as FTR would say, I mean, there are top guys, and you got to lean into establishing those top guys. If you try to make everybody look the same, who's going to rise above it, and who's going to be a legitimate challenger for the champions? I don't know. It was kind of a bummer to see that happen for me. So it was a delete out of me. Was it an elite or delete out of you, SPD?
It was a delete as well.
So a unanimous delete out of the team here at Dynamite Download for FTR. I'm bummed out. I'm going to need another swig of beer. Why don't you transition us into the next one?
Yeah. So following the FTR match, we had the NWA Women's Championship belt on the line for Tay Conti and Serena Deeb. We haven't seen Serena Deeb, I believe, since the Thunder Rosa match, or I can't recall when we saw her last, but like we've said before, she should be and is a cornerstone of the women's division. She is very entertaining and in the ring.
Yeah, I called her the Cody Rhodes of the women's.
She should be.
For me, SPD, it's just like she's so technically sound. I know that you love this about Cody. You could put Cody in the ring with a guy like Darby Allin. You could put him in the ring like Lance Archer, right? You could have him in the ring with anybody, and he'll make his opponent look better. He can have a great match, and his opponent always comes out looking like $1 million. And I think that Serena Deeb is the exact same way. You could put her in the ring with somebody who's incredibly experienced, like she is, or a rookie, and Serena always raises the level of competition from her opponent. I have so much respect for how she carries herself in the ring. She's so purposeful, really, really smart wrestler.
Yeah. And this was a great match, and I really love that the fact that they focused this on the Road to as well, and they showed a lot of Road to stuff all throughout Dynamite for those who didn't see it. So it was a good thing to help tie it in, tie the meaning of the storylines with the Eddie Pac and this match, and then obviously the Darby Cage match. And so honestly, like, this was probably the best I've seen Tay in the ring on TV to date.
Oh, yeah.
I think she is growing in the ring at a rapid pace, but both her and Anna are really growing in the ring and establish themselves. I think they're getting a lot of good reps, on Dark and, occasionally Dynamite. And it really was a fun match in terms of just all the different holds and submissions that we were seeing between both of them. They paired up so well together. Both competitors paired up very well together. And there were a lot of things that I have never seen before in a match. And, it kind of like, it was methodical and it was kind of slow paced in a way, but it worked. Usually for those women's matches, when they're like that, they really, lose me quickly. They lose me real quick. This was teetering of losing me and keeping me interested, but there was a lot of there's a lot of things I've not seen before, and the only downfall of this is the picture in picture really hurt the momentum of this match once again. It was sad. But at the end of the match, when Tay and Anna were like holding hands, I almost kind of felt like, is Anna going to turn on her this soon? Like, is she like saying you're not good enough? I don't know. I don't know. I just kind of felt this vibe. I know they're claiming to be best friends, but I could totally see a turn coming down the line and a feud between those two. But I think they're going to ride this out for a little bit longer. But Serena Deep is just
I was waiting for
professional
Anna.
in the ring.
I was waiting for Anna to slide in the ring and challenge Serena. I think that would have been a really nice transition. Sticking up for her best friend who lost or what have you. And Anna Jay, you just talked about it. Anna Jay, her growth as a wrestler, obviously her character growth has been just like the Dark Order. They've gotten so much better. The more that they get exposed, the more opportunities we have to see them. Anna's character work has gotten so much better, but her in-ring work, I think that you and I are becoming fans of the Queenslayer. I think that we're starting to see Anna's got a lot of potential.
Anna,
Anna, I would have loved to see her go against Serena, because again, that would have been an opportunity for her to get in the ring with someone who's such a polished veteran that you could give Anna an opportunity to go head to head, fighting for a championship, getting that experience, that rub from Serena, but also like learning the pacing of a match. I mean, like Serena is so good at wrestling with purpose. You and I have talked about this before with her match with Thunder. Thunder Rosa gets a lot of credit for all that she does, and she should. She's amazing in the ring. But Serena, she wrestles her matches so that you don't have these awkward, like, no, you're supposed to do this. You don't ever feel like she's waiting for a spot.
Right.
Serena doesn't do that. Like, her matches don't feel like she's like, her and her opponent are confused on what's going to happen next. She doesn't wrestle that way. She's always thinking. She's always purposeful. Her movements are so smooth. It feels like an actual fight, like an actual competition.
Very
and
Thunder,
that's what I love
Rosa
about
style.
Serena. Yeah, Thunder's the same way, and we've heard Thunder, with her MMA background, approaching a fight. You shouldn't ever have moments where you're not like engaged in what's going on, and I love that with Serena. Just that it speaks to her veteran presence
for sure.
Incredibly smart competitor, and for her to go in the ring with someone so young like Ty Conti and to really take the back seat and allow her Ty to have a lot of moments in this match. I mean, that pump kick, I talked about that pump kick from Ty to Serena was next level. I mean, I know you're a Sheamus guy.
Yeah.
I know that Irish blood in you makes you always a Sheamus fanboy, but Conti put on a brogue kick like nobody's business in this match. Like that was incredibly impressive. All around great showing. I was a big fan. I thought going into tonight, obviously Pac versus Kingston was going to be the one for me as a fan I was going to be most excited about, but I felt like this match could have been the dark horse match of the night, just because of their backgrounds. I do agree with you. That road to, I've known Serena's career. I've known her path to get to this point. It was nice seeing her have interviews and segments that were pre-recorded. I think Serena does much better in that than in the live interviews. But we get to see Ty Conti's story about, really coming from nothing. And I feel like those kind of stories, those kind of moments instantaneously build a fan base. Instantaneously. I don't know how anyone can't instantly rally behind somebody who bet on themselves, who fought hard and continues to fight hard to overcome the odds. And she's that type of person. I'm a big fan of what we saw tonight. This one gets an elite out of me for sure. I do agree with you. The picture in picture, I can't tell you when that's ever worked. I mean, even the main event, maybe the main event tonight, there were moments in the picture in picture with Brian Cage and Darby where, it was fine. It worked. but for the most part, it detracts from the match. I think that they just need to get rid of it altogether. That said, let's focus on the positive. This one's an elite. It was a great showcasing of, Serena's skills. I'm curious to see where she's going to go from here. Are we going to continue to see the NWA title defended on
I
AEW
hope so.
television?
I want to see more of her. And, it was an elite out of me too. It was Serena Deep, she's been putting on, countless great matches that we've seen. And Tay Conti, like I said, was as really impressed me tonight. She really did. And definitely a lead out of me. And the main event is a whole nother story. And oh my gosh, it is a mind-blowing one as it ever. I mean, Darby Allin, over 100 pounds lighter than the Machine FTW champion Brian Cage. And did he ever put on a performance like I've never seen before out of a true big man? I mean, the strength, the power. I mean, I don't know anyone on the roster who could manhandle another person the way he did. I mean, he caught him, Darby was going to run through the ropes. He caught him in midair, then lifts him up. Then he throws him over his head through a table about 10, 15 feet through the table and accurately does it. And then he picks him up and suplexes him safely. And then he picks him up and then walks him up the steps and then throws his ass in the ring. Like, oh my gosh. Like the pure power and strength by Brian Cage.
That's something
we have not seen before. And this is just insane.
You mentioned, I mean, I love hearing you kind of go on the tangent of how exciting and insane this whole thing was. I feel like not only was it a great showcase of Cage's strength, but it was such a great showcase of his creativity in the ring.
For sure.
Good point. It's one thing to be a hoss and German suplex, or we've seen power. We've seen a lot of big men. Wrestling has always been a body. Right. Wrestling's always been a body business, right? So you see we've seen lots of big men in wrestling before. But Cage's creativity and his ability to showcase his power in such a wide variety of cool, wild ways. As a fan, I was just like, it's hard to put it into words. It's hard to put it into words. It really was one of those showings where, yes, Darby came out on top. But I'm sorry, man. Like, Brian Cage came off like I've never seen him before. I mean, this was a star performance by Cage. Obviously, I mean, he carried 98% of the match. I mean, just through his offense, it didn't feel slow. I know you're big on pacing of a match.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like it was too long. It didn't feel like it had big moments or stretches where, pausing or awkwardness. Anytime that Darby kicked out, Cage continued to push the pace. That power bomb sequence where he picked him up off the ground and did multiple power bombs. I am at a loss for words.
Clearly you don't know what to say. And I mean, so was I was like, just end it, just like what Taz said. But like, we unanimously agree our top performer of the night was Brian Cage for that reason. Just the pure power, the creativity that we've seen. Like I said before, I have not seen anything like it in the way of just pure manhandling. Yes, he's over 100 pounds lighter, but still, I mean, if I'm picking up someone that's 100 pounds lighter than me, it's still going to be a little challenging. I'm not a beast like Brian Cage, but just the stuff he did, I just kept going, wow. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. Like, just end it. Where's Darby? I mean, yes, I've talked about Darby being the rag doll, the crash test dummy that he is. And, it really did showcase that again, even though he did come out on top. But the performance by Brian Cage tonight was, I think him losing does him no harm. He proved to everyone in the wrestling business how strong and how much a beast he is. And you can't hide that, man. That strength and that pure raw performance like that. You can't. Yeah. Wow.
In general on this show, SPD, I try really hard to not give my performer of the night to someone who lost. That's something that like one of my inner rules that I try to abide by. But dude, even on a night where Pac got his hands on Kingston and he opened the show in a way that I think no one was able to meet the bar up until this match. Dude, Cage was absolutely next level tonight. This is such a great pairing. I gotta say, I've said it before. This is the masochist versus the machine. You got Darby, who literally seems to almost enjoy pain, going against a monster of a man who enjoys dishing it out. This was truly a badass performance by Cage. This dude's creativity, utilizing his strength, his power, his athleticism. It was
Who better than Brian Cage?
Honest to God, leaving this match, I know that Brian Cage has lost a lot of his title match. He's had several title match opportunities, and he's come out as the loser in those. That said, he did not look like a loser tonight. Right. I feel like Brian Cage's performance tonight was truly something. As a fan of Team Taz, I mean, if you are an AEW fan, I think all of us walk away saying we want to see Brian Cage get more opportunities in the ring like this. I mean, I want to see Cage get a strong run with a title. I don't know if it's the TNT title or not, but this dude is, when you look at him, and this is another thing. I know that we shouldn't be so shallow, but if you're a casual fan and you're scrolling through the channels and you see Brian Cage and you see what he did to Darby Allin tonight, you're not changing the channel. You're stopping on TNT and you're watching this destruction, this mayhem. Cage's violence that he showed tonight.
Oh my gosh.
This was like that car crash that you can't take your eyes off of. This was that. Like, we've seen Cage put Darby literally in a body bag before. This was an absolute beatdown, like nothing we've seen on AEW television, really. I mean, when was the last time you saw someone look this dominant in a singles match? AEW tries very hard to really build up everybody in their own ways, even in losing efforts. Like we talked about earlier, Marco Stunt, even in a losing effort, he still had to look good. Dude, the only thing about Darby in this matchup that you got out of it was that he has heart that cannot be broken. Otherwise, man, it was all Cage the entire match.
Yeah, there wasn't, I mean, comes to mind, I mean, you had another beatdown where Brody beat Cody for the TNT title. You know, that was another beatdown, but honestly, Cage, I think, manhandled Darby worse than Brody manhandled Cody. But, you know, of course, we knew the inevitable was coming. You know, I did a hot take. I was hoping we'd see the Singer Splash, but we did see a few baseball bat swings against Ricky Starks from Sting, which was a nice way to end the match. I mean, you knew it was coming, and it worked out perfect. You know, it was the distraction, the help that Darby needed, because, you know, Ricky Starks in true heel Team Taz move was going to start to interfere, and it was a finisher that you know, it wasn't his normal coffin drop finisher. You know, speaking of coffin drops, the coffin drops onto the stairs, you know, that was brutal. And then this finisher was a fun finisher to really take his momentum and to help use the size of Cage to his advantage to pin him. So it actually worked really well. It wasn't one of the cheap roll-ups, you know, even the coffin drop. I hate the roll-ups, but even like the coffin drop, I love that finisher, but I don't think it would have been strong enough for a defeat against Cage. And so I think this was it was a very, very well booked finisher. But leaving this match, you know, I'm not talking about Sting. I'm not talking about Darby. I'm still talking about Cage. You know, his performance was just out of this world. And, you know, he's our top performer of the night for sure. And, you know, going from here, I'm not sure where we go from it, but
that's what I was going to ask. I mean, I know that when I've talked to Bonds and I read his column, I know that Bonds sees this all playing out where, Team Taz they're all going to challenge Darby for the TNT championship at
Right.
some point. And we've talked about the inner circle having some, dissension amongst the ranks. This could be an opportunity where you introduce a little dissension. If a Ricky Starks or a Will Hobbs can beat Darby, then you start to see a little bit of maybe the ego. You potentially, right?
Right.
I don't think that they're done with Darby. I certainly don't.
No,
think
definitely not.
Yeah, and I think that the way the show ended, again, it was kind of like a flash pin from Darby. Darby was really manhandled throughout this match, so I think Taz is going to have plenty of ammo in his arsenal to come back and say, he got lucky. It was a fluke, that type of thing. This is not an example of him throwing in the towel for Cage. I think that Cage, Cage earned another shot too, man. I don't know, man. This, like you said, I'm leaving tonight's Dynamite talking about Brian Cage. I mean, that's it. We have so much star power on this show. No doubt. Brian Cage put on a performance of a lifetime tonight. I mean, that guy showed out.
Did he ever? And this was Bonds' biggest moment of the night was this match with Darby Allin and Brian Cage. And we're gonna hear from him right now.
99% of that TNT title match, Darby Allin, you earned the biggest moment of the week with your win because the 1% of offense you got in was all it took to take down Brian Cage. And man, there was a lot going on in this match. Cage dominated the whole time. Our champion looked like he had no chance. And I can't believe he managed to pull it off. Guys, I want your thoughts on this because Cage looked dominant in defeat. And Darby has a lot of questions to answer, frankly, because he wasn't able to do anything on offense until there was distractions ringside. So I want your thoughts on this because this is a huge win for Darby and for his reputation. But man, he looked really, really small against a guy like Cage. And there's a lot more champions like that than like Darby Allin. So I want your thoughts on that match and that crazy moment to end the show.
So yeah, Bonds really piggybacked on all of us about the biggest moment. The Darby and Cage match was truly a jaw dropper moment, and that leads us into next week's card. We got some good announcements. I mean, we're seeing almost the whole Inner Circle in a Inner Circle Tag Team Challenge 3-way match. This is the first triple threat match we've seen. It's kind of a tag team triple threat, but it features everybody in the Inner Circle except Wardlow, which we talked about earlier. It's kind of interesting. I think maybe he'll have some kind of swerve in there, which we're hoping for, because we're very high on Wardlow. But on paper, I honestly think Jericho and MJF will take the W on this. I think they have to.
That's what I was going to ask you. Who comes out on top? Who's your money on?
Yeah, Jericho and MJF. I think somehow there's some distraction between the other four guys, and then they kind of like weasel their way in true heel fashion and take a victory. Not a true clean finish. It's kind of a weasel finish by Jericho and MJF. And then you start to get some turmoil, and you see Santana and Ortiz and Sammy start to get pissed off because they kind of screwed him over in like a cheat to win fashion.
I could see that. My heart's with Santana and Ortiz. I'm not betting against Proud and Powerful. Right. I'm not doing it. I love those guys. Obviously, Jericho and MJF. I mean, if that ends up actually being a tag team, God, can you imagine the character work that those guys will have in their feuds? That one's going to be interesting. I see where you're going with that. Certainly could lead to some more tension if MJF and Jericho come out on top. Why not?
Right.
Dude, you and I were talking about TH2 and how we thought that maybe they might get kind of pushed to the side after we saw them kind of unceremoniously lose to the Young Bucks and SCU. I am so happy to know that we were wrong because I love seeing Dirtbag Jack Evans. I love it. Cannot wait to see this one. Hangman Page joining the Dark Order.
I hope so.
Teaming up with his guys in the Dark Order against TH2 and the Chaos Project. So TH2's kind of getting bounced around, teaming up with a bunch of randoms and the Acclaimed last time we saw them, and now the Chaos Project. I don't see Jack Evans and my guy Jack Evans, unfortunately, coming out on top in this one.
Right.
But certainly will be an interesting matchup, and it'll be fun to watch Paige with Dark Order next week.
Yeah, and I hope that we do get an official join by Hangman. That would be fun for them to see him join the Dark Order officially. But
Yep.
the next match, Top Flight and Matt Sydal, oh my gosh, and Hardy Party, these are six guys that could really do some incredible, innovative things in the ring that this could very well steal the show in terms of high flying action. I mean, you put a veteran like Seidel with some green guys like Top Flight, that's a perfect pairing. And we talked
What a
about them being.
pairing.
This is just going to be such I think it's going to be a show stealing match, fast paced, high flying, innovative, trio moves from both teams. And I can't wait for this one. I think just on paper, I'm a huge John Silver fan, huge Inner Circle fan, but in terms of in-ring action, I think this one I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, I know that Matt Sydal has certainly got you buzzing. You put him in the ring with Top Flight, that's going to be really cool. I'm excited
I
for
agree.
that one. Really into that. I think that's going to be great. The Miro update, I've been advocating patience with the wrestling community. I've been trying to preach patience with Miro. I think that it's a slow build with him, and I can't wait to see what Miro has in store for Chuck Taylor on his first week of being his butler, his young boy, whatever you want to say. I like that we're going to see an update next week. Cannot wait. I know that Miro is incredibly entertaining. He's a very creative person, so I'm sure he's going to come up with all sorts of new ways to make Chuck Taylor's life a hell.
Oh,
so
yeah,
that should
that's for
definitely
sure.
be fun. But
we
speaking of hell, wow, that next match.
This will be a good one. I know Nyla Rose is definitely much bigger than Layla Hirsch, but Layla Hirsch, last time we saw her in the ring, she really impressed us. She's got some great groundwork and she's got some really great strength with her suplexes. But finally we're getting to see Nyla Rose back in the ring, and I think it'll be a hard fought match. But Nyla ultimately will just lay down the hammer and finish her pretty easily. But Layla will put up a good fight for a while, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting one, SPD, because, Layla certainly hasn't been built as a main contender. Certainly not like Nyla. And the size disparity between those two.
Right.
I mean, we talked about that size disparity in the main event from tonight. That's an even bigger one, Nyla versus Layla Hirsch. I think that's a huge size disparity there. Nyla is definitely in need. I think in need of being rebuilt a little bit. If they are,
for sure,
look at Nyla. Yeah, I mean, if they look at Nyla as part of this core, she hasn't really had a lot of momentum behind her for quite some time now. So I think that'll be interesting. Personally, I would love to see an upset. I would love to see Layla get the win on this one. I think Layla, although we talked about she's short, no doubt, can't hold that against her.
She's tough as nails.
Man, is she tough, dude. I mean, I know that there's been some people pushing for her to potentially be another member of Team Taz if they want to add a female to that roster.
I'd like it.
What a fit. She'd be a great fit because she brings that nasty, tough, chip on your shoulder type of mentality to everything she does. I think that's going to be an interesting match. And then speaking of chip on your shoulder, I mean, there's nobody in the world who has a bigger one than Jon Moxley. Perennially pissed off. Certainly has a lot to be upset about, and we can't. I don't know who he's going to get his hands on, but whoever it is, I don't envy that spot whatsoever. I think Moxley's going to be bringing the pain next week, brother.
That's for sure. That'll be nice to see him back in the ring. And we're excited for another week of Dynamite next week. And we are excited to interact with all of you on social media. We're going to be doing something special if you guys are watching this before Friday. But Friday night, we're going to do a live stream on our YouTube. We're going to do some Q&A from the fans and just talk shop and talk wrestling and have a little Friday Night Flights happy hour with you all. And so we can just, shoot the breeze and kind of, piggyback on Dynamite and some unanswered questions that we don't have. But definitely check us out on our YouTube Dynamite download.
10 p.m. on Friday evening, we're going to be doing that live Q&A, and we're going to try to start doing that more and more. Friday Dynamite Download flights and fights. We're going to be trying to have some Q&A with you guys and girls out there, because we've had such great interaction with you on Twitter at AEW Dynamite DL and on Instagram. We know that SPD's gaining that following, building up that traction on Instagram with such great content. So really look forward to more interaction with all of you. Make sure you check AEW Dynamite Download by Friday. You're going to see tomorrow. We're going to try to get this up, that column up by Bonds tomorrow. And all your reading pleasure. I know that there's a lot of fans that love to see what Bonds has to say. So can't wait to talk to you guys all on Friday live. And we look forward to another exciting week of AEW television.